thank you for joining us here at the reading stage. I've got a special treat for you. You know her as Cece from Shake It Up. Get ready for Bella Thorne.
Hi guys! How you doing today? You guys all excited to be here? And how was your guys' Easter? That's what I like to hear. So, has anybody ever read Curious George? Have you guys? Oh, you guys like the book? Good, me too. Okay, so H.A. Ray, Curious George. This is George. He lived in Africa, and he was such a good little monkey, but always very curious. One day, George saw a man. He had on a large yellow straw hat. The man saw George too. What a nice little monkey, he thought. I would like to take him home with me. He put his hat on the ground, and of course, George was curious. He came down from the tree to look at the large yellow hat. The hat had been on the man's head. George thought it would be nice to have it on his own head. He picked it up and put it on. The hat covered George's head. He couldn't see. The man picked him up quickly and popped him into a bag. George was caught. The man with the big yellow hat put George into a little boat, and a sailor rowed them both across the water to a big ship. George was sad, but still a little curious. On the big ship, things began to happen. The man took off the bag. George sat on a little stool, and the man said, "George, I am going to take you to a big zoo and a big city, and you will like it there. Now, run along and play, and don't get in trouble." George promised to be good, but it is easy for little monkeys to forget. Can anybody tell me what's going to happen next? Yeah? George might not like the zoo? Yeah? He might go crazy? Okay, let's see. On the deck, he found some seagulls. He wondered how they could fly. He was very curious. Finally, he had to try. It looked easy, but... oh, what happened? First this, and then this. "Where is George?" The sailors looked and looked. At last they saw him struggling in the water and almost all tired out. "Man overboard!" the sailors cried as they threw him a life belt. George caught it and held on. At last he was safe on board. After that, George was way more careful to be a good monkey, until at last the long trip was over. George said goodbye to the kind sailors, and he looked with the man with the yellow hat, walked off the ship onto the shore and into the city to the man's house. After a good meal and a good pipe, George felt very tired. And there he is, in his pajamas. He crawled into bed and fell asleep at once. The next morning, the man telephoned the zoo. George watched him. He was very fascinated. The man went away. George was curious. He wanted to telephone too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What fun! What do you think's gonna happen now? Oh, I'm sorry. What? Yeah, he is. Ding-a-ling-a-ling! George had telephoned the fire station. The fireman rushed to the telephone. "Hello, hello?" they said, but there was no answer. Then they looked for the signal on the big map that showed where the telephone call had came from. They didn't know it was George. They thought it was a real fire. "Hurry, hurry, hurry!" The firemen jumped onto the fire engines and onto the hook and ladders. Ding dong, ding dong. Everyone out of the way. Hurry, hurry, hurry. The firemen rushed into the house. They opened the door. no fire, only a naughty little monkey. Catch him, they cried. George tried to run away. He almost did, but he got caught in the telephone wire, and a thin fireman caught one arm and a fat fireman caught the other. You fooled the fire department, they said. We will have to shut you up or you can't do any more harm. They took him away and shut him in a prison. George wanted to get out. He climbed up to the window to try the bars. Just then, the watchman came in. He got on the wooden bed to catch George, but he was too big and heavy. The bed tipped up, the watchman fell over, and, quick as lightning, George ran out through the open door. He hurried through the building and out on the roof, and then he was lucky to be a monkey. Out he walked on the telephone wires, quickly and quietly over the guard's head. George walked fast, and he was free, and there was him escaping. Down in the street, outside the prison wall, stood a balloon man. A little girl bought a balloon for her brother. George watched. He was curious again. He felt he must have a bright red balloon. He reached over and tried to help himself. But instead of one balloon, the whole bunch broke loose. In an instant, the wind whisked him all away, and with them went George, holding tight with both hands. Up and up he sailed, higher and higher. The houses looked like toy houses, and the people like dolls. George was frightened. He held on very tight. At first the wind blew in great gusts, then it quieted. Finally it stopped blowing altogether. George was very, very tired. Down, down he went, bump on the top of a traffic light. Everyone was surprised. The traffic got all mixed up. George didn't know what to do. And then he heard someone call, "George!" He looked down and saw his friend, the man with the big yellow hat. And there's the traffic. George was very happy, and the man was happy too. George slid down the post, and the man with the big yellow hat put him under his arm. And then he paid the balloon man for all the balloons. And then George and the man climbed into the car, and at last, away they went. To the zoo! What a nice place for George to live! And that is the end of Curious George. Did you guys like the book? Awesome.